Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Games to the Max. I'm your host, Sean Garmer, here with me, as usual, Mr. Mark Morrison.
Howdy.
And well, we didn't mean to miss a week last week. Randy was supposed to be on with me, but then he informed me that he has started his big job that he was hoping, waiting on a final decision on. So had to cancel. Plus, being Thanksgiving week wasn't the easiest to find people. So, but it's all right. We got 2 weeks of news to talk about here, including the big Sony sending a letter of intent over to Kadokawa for possible acquisition. Is that going to happen? Is it not? Will it happen? The PlayStation handheld rumors going around. The other things that are going on with Sony, including a look back at their 2024. Was it a good year? Was it a bad year? Was it a better than should have been year? We'll talk about all that stuff and more right after this.
You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
All right, just to go ahead and get this out of the way here, the housekeeping. Whether it's your first time watching or listening, whether it's your 100th time watching or listening, we do appreciate you. Thank you for always joining us here, whether you watch live or later on demand, or you listen later on demand on podcasts. Always appreciated. You can watch us live, usually around the 7 o'clock-ish time. It was a bit late today because work was crappy and took a little bit longer to get this ready. But yeah, usually been around 7 o'clock on Mondays. You can watch live on the YouTube channel, W2 Network, Facebook, Twitch, W2 Network there as well. Or you can just watch later on demand on the YouTube channel. Thank you for all of y'all that do. You help us out. You can also listen with your ears on podcasts later. Just search Video Games to the Max in your podcast feed. And of course, that will help on those feeds as well. And don't forget, if you subscribe to the channel, you also get the other shows that are part of the YouTube Network as well, which we're going to talk about some stuff that's related to anime. But if you like watching and listening to people talk about anime, the Otaku Cafe people, they do a great job. That crew tackles all the new anime releases in the seasonal format. So if you like watching your anime seasonally, like Dawn to Dawn, Dragon Ball Diamond, all that stuff, they cover all those plus the other things that are kind of like more recurring. They talk about all that stuff each week, so make sure you check them out. And of course, the Roger Broadcasting folks, they cover up all the entertainment news. So I'm sure they will have the Wicked review and Gladiator 2. I think they've already done that, and so on. So every time there's a big movie, they pretty much have the review pretty much a couple days after. So you definitely want to check them out for that if you're on the entertainment side of things there. So yeah, I think that's going to do it here for the promotion side. Let's go ahead and start with the games we're playing. I'm once again stuck with in between weeks where I'm reviewing a game that I can't talk about it until it hits the embargo, which is in a few days. So next week I'll be able to talk about the game I'm playing, but you could probably guess by what's coming out soon and the kind of games that I like, probably what it is, but I'll talk about it when we can. Mark has been playing some stuff. So
Yep.
what have you been playing there?
I picked up that Marvel Capcom collection, the fighting,
Yeah.
and I played a lot of Marvel vs. Capcom too, because you have to, because there's
Right,
a
of course.
trophy. Well, there's a trophy that you get the game with every character.
Okay.
Yeah. Fortunately, you can kind of cheese it. You can lose to Abyss in the final boss, and then make a save, quick save, and then keep reloading it with different characters. So that helps.
Okay.
I did that. So that was fun. And I'll dig into the other games eventually. Some of them I don't care about, like the Punisher or like X-Men, Child of the Atom. I never really played, but we'll see. me, Jens, and his friend David beat Space Marine 2, or like half of it really, because it has like the main campaign, but then it's like, yo, we have like this whole other optional campaign for all the side stuff like you didn't see going on. So
Okay.
we'll hopefully get back to that sooner or later, or probably hopefully Thursday.
Any changes now that you've played? Any thoughts changing now that you've played more of it, or it just kind of?
It's still good, you know. I think like Gears of War probably has better weapons for sure. And yeah, there are at least like 2 more jetpack sequences, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the jetpack stopped working. It's like, wait, what? Like, but fun, you know. Last boss was kind of fun, or like, you know, the last mission. But you know, solid overall third person like action game. I've been playing Alan Wake 2, because Jens got it because I badgered him into it. That is a weird game. I don't think I like it.
Why?
Because I like the first one a lot, and this divulges in some pretty weird ways. So first of all, like, you can't really have the flashlight out too much because it attracts enemies.
Right.
So that's kind of dumb. The manuscript pages don't like glow anymore like they used to. So the flow of the game is different. Like Alan Wake 1 is a pretty linear game. Like buying through. Like there were like occasional puzzle sequences or stuff like that. But pretty much it's just a get from point A to point B, killing the Taken, finding supplies, finding pages, and you know, just going through it. This isn't that. This is like, okay, you're at a level, and there's probably like 3 or 4 different areas in this level. Like the one I just did was I was in this town called Watery. I think it was like a suburb. So there was like the main town. There was a trailer park. There was like the woods to the north, and then there was like what they called Coffee World, which is like this like decaying theme park to like the west, and then there's like a biker garage to the west of that. So there's like 5 areas basically, and like you have all these like weird quests or like objectives to do in each area. So it's like, okay, I need to open a trailer, but to open a trailer, I have to go through the woods to get to the theme park to get the key, which wasn't like was there, but I also picked up a screwdriver, so now I can open up all these locks I've been passing by. So it's more open world kind of, but I don't really think that enhances the game that much, or I just kind of get lost. And I mean, it has a map, but it's not. It's kind of helpful, but I have to keep like bringing it up. The Mind Palace stuff with Saga is okay, but the writing stuff with Alan Wake himself is like really annoying. I did do the musical interlude.
That's
And
great.
like, okay, that's cool. It's cool to watch, but to play it kind of sucks. Because like the third time, there's like 3 parts to it, and the first 2 times you're just kind of like running around, like running through it. But the third time there are enemies you have to like face, and it's like, well, I can't really focus on what all the guys are doing in the video because I got this asshole Taken, fighting me, and
It's almost kind of like when they have the background stuff going on in Rockman, and it's like they want you to watch it, but it's impossible for you to watch it because there's stuff going on in the front of it.
Right. I don't have like a ton of supplies. There were like a lot of supplies actually in that level, like flare gun ammo and stuff. But like, you use the flare gun once, and you have to wait like 15 seconds for it to reload. It's like, this isn't great. So I just like ran through that part, like that section entirely, because I don't want to deal with all of these. I died like 6 times, so I'm like, I just keep getting like more and more frustrated with this. So yeah, like it's one of those weird games where I really want to like it, but it's just not clicking for me at all.
Did you find I found the Alan Wake section, not just the writing part. That's kind of
I don't like that at all. Like the whole like, oh, you're in the subway and it's like either you're following an FBI agent or you're following the cult or that crap. It seems really like awkward.
I like the Saga stuff a lot more because that felt more like survival horror with the Mind Palace stuff, and then the Alan Wake stuff was kind of annoying because then when you're dealing with the Taken, trying to figure out if one of them actually died is annoying. Like how many times do you hit them? Then like are they actually dead? No, and then which ones are actually trying to attack me? Which ones are not? You know.
Yeah, so that was like I'm still pretty early on, but I've actually dumped at least 10 hours into this thing. I'm not just like hour 2 or anything.
Right.
So like I did Saga chapter. I also don't think it's good how they split the chapters up that well. Like they should just force you to be one or the other. Or if you want to play, I want to have both characters. You know, you finish one Saga chapter and you go to Alan Wake. Or they should have done that better. I think because I finished one Saga chapter, like chapter 3, and I was like, okay, I'll play this Alan Wake chapter. And then I jumped to Alan Wake, and it seemed like I was completely in a different time place, or it seemed like this weird time thing happened where like I didn't really know where I was. Like
Right.
I'm talking to Sam Lake as Alex Casey in this like FBI building or this like sheriff's office, and all of a sudden like this cult starts attacking us, and then like 10 minutes later, like I'm trying to find Alex Casey, and then like Saga shows up like suddenly, and I'm like, wait, why did he disappear? Like it's almost like magic, or I was like, did I miss something, or
It's
did
like,
I
oh,
play?
all of a sudden you're playing a Saga and you had no idea that they switched.
Yeah, it really was that. And I'm what happened? Like, did I like fade out for a second, or what's going on? So did you play it? Or, I mean, you played it, but did you finish
Yeah, I
it?
played. No, I didn't get to finish it. I played a little bit past all that.
Yeah.
I think that's about where probably where you are a little bit past that. I was meant to go back to it and I didn't.
Yeah, right now I'm in this hotel with Alan Wake, and it's the same thing about,
Yeah.
oh, I have to set the ballroom up this way, or I have to set the, and like, yeah, it's just really weird. Like, I really want to like the game, but I just like Alan Wake 1 more, and it's kind
That's
of a
fair enough.
bummer.
Yeah. It's different because I hear a lot of people after they play Alan Wake 2, it's like, oh, this is so much better.
Maybe it comes together in like the 30-hour mark or something, or combat suddenly gets good or something.
No, the combat is really never like the whole point of that. The combat is lacking in that game, and I can definitely understand people that if you can't get past that, especially the Alan Wake sections are annoying. When it comes to the combat, they're a little bit more manageable and fun. I feel like with Saga,
Well, she has
especially when
more
you get like the
weapons and
bosses.
better weapons.
Yeah,
Like, although it's funny because like I got the crossbow for her, and I had it equipped, and I'm doing these like cutscenes. I'm talking to the two old Nordic guys, Thor and whatever his other guy,
yeah,
and I wanted a stupid fucking crossbow on my back, and I'm like, this is unintentionally funny, like,
right.
But yeah, I like everything else about the game, kind of. Like, I mean, it looks really great. I like the writing, but I don't like the central premise of like I mean, the Mind Palace is better, I guess, but
Mhm.
uh, I don't like either one that much. Like, I don't like the Mind Palace just because like they should just do it automatically, and like occasionally, it sometimes just happens automatically where like the whole big board gets filled up with all the evidence I have, but sometimes it doesn't. So I'm like trying to like
Right.
parse out like, oh, where does this fucking photo go out of like 9 different subjects on this board, But that's Alan Wake 2. I got Ion Chronicles, that Suikoden 2 sequel.
Yeah.
It's all right, you know. I didn't play. I played like 5 hours, and then I fired up Alan Wake 2. And I'll go back to it, but pretty traditional Suikoden type game. Seems okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt about it. It didn't grab too much of my attention. I played a few hours and I was like, I'm not getting grabbed to like continue.
I guess I'll say like I think the main character is kind of boring so far. And I'm kind of waiting for the twist of like, okay, now you have a town, and now you have a castle, and you got to collect all these people,
Right.
And I do have a roster of like 15 people so far, but nothing to do with them. It's just like, oh, they've joined your company. And it's like, okay, but what do I do with them? Or it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, okay, I got this big fucking bear thing. It's like cool, I guess. I can put them in my party, but why would I want to?
Right.
Uh, and then over the past 2 weeks, I picked up some old games. Uh, like 3 weeks ago, I picked up Brave Fencer Musashi.
Always heard great things about that game.
Yeah, I played like a demo, I think, like years ago on a PS1 underground demo disc or something. But I was at a used store and they had it for $50. I was like, that seems like a decent price. And then I looked it up and it was $50 lower than what it should have been. And I was like, this seems like a better price now. And it was like
Yeah.
the complete version of the game, like case, manual, everything was there. And I was like, you've made a sale. And even like the clerk looked at it and he was like, this seems lower than it should be. And I was like, you were right. But that is the price you have to honor. So give me my fucking game.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like $52, and I think like on price charting, it's at least 100. So I'm like, all right, sold. Uh, and then like 2 weeks ago, I picked up. I was at another game store, and I picked up. They had a big import games section for fairly cheap stuff. So I picked up. It was buy 5, get the 6 for free. So I grabbed Final Fantasy 7 and 8 for PS1. Parappa the Rapper on
Nice.
PS1. So that'll be fun to play in Japanese. Uh, Okami HD on PS3, and then Metal Gear Solid 2 and 4. So that should be fun.
Yeah. Especially 4. I imagine it's going to be a lot of fun with a Japanese.
Yeah,
A lot of
I
talk.
mean, hearing Hideo Kojima yell at you. uh,
Right.
I think some of those games, I think Metal Gear Solid might actually have English in it. I'm not quite sure, but like 7 and 8 don't. I know that. Like the international versions might, but I got them because they were $5, so who cares,
Yeah. Yeah. I get you on that.
But Parappa should be pretty playable. Have like crazy Japanese lyrics instead. And that's actually about it. I did pick up. One thing on Black Friday I picked up, well, like a day or two before, I picked up a copy of Expeditions, a Mudrunner game on PS5 because it was
You
actually
play
very
that
cheap.
yet?
No, I have to. I have like no hard drive space on my PS5. I gotta start deleting shit. But like Alan Wake 2 and Space Marine aren't exactly small games, so.
Yeah, they're not.
Like when I got home, my PS5 was yelling at me. He's like, "You need 5 GB free to download this Alan Wake 2 patch," and I had like 4.5 GB free. I was like, "Oh, gotta get rid of something here." But
Yeah, I had the same thing when I tried when I got Horizon Zero Dawn remaster. It was like,
yeah,
you don't have enough space for this. So I was like, oh, okay, let me go find things to delete, I guess.
yep, exactly. But yep, that's about it for me.
But all right, I think we can go ahead and get into the big topics here. I guess let's start with the one that's more gaming focused. The other one is gaming focused, but that one has a larger branch. So it's not just gaming related. Most of our stuff is going to be Sony related, just letting you know, or PlayStation related. So they just happen to have a big old 2 weeks of news about them. So that's what's going to be most of the talk here. So let's start with the rumored PlayStation handheld that has not been confirmed by anyone at Sony. It's just a rumor that's being talked about by somebody at Bloomberg that tends to report on Japanese news. Takashi Michizuki, who's usually right about the Nintendo stuff. Sometimes he's wrong about the Sony stuff. But considering that the last time we had a show, we had Randy on, it was Microsoft with Phil Spencer saying that they're working on an Xbox handheld that is years away. And then lo and behold, a week later, we get a rumor that PlayStation is also working on a handheld that is, quote, years away. And also added to the fact that they may not release it at all. So that, of course, comes from Bloomberg. This also comes on the heels of them releasing a something that at first, when I remember the Portal coming out and them getting asked this question about could they put cloud on the Portal, they said no. And then all of a sudden, here comes the news that I'm writing myself that they have added cloud support to the Portal where you could stream games that are on PS Plus. It's not all of them, it's 120 games. And I'm assuming they will eventually add more games to that as time goes on. Xbox also added the stream your own games that you own thing. Then they started with like 50 of those games. So that started to work now too. But because they added that feature, it makes it possible where maybe they decide that this handheld is not going to happen. But we know what the history is with this now. You can't have, first of all, for sure it's not a Vita 2, right? You can't have a portable system anymore that makes its own games. It has to be something that plays the games that already exist.
It's going to be the PSP 3.
But I guess some of the debate that I saw was, when does this come out, if it comes out at all? And what will it actually play PS5 games natively on it?
It may come out, and the answer to the second question is no.
I mean, you could technically play PS5 caliber games on your Steam Deck, right?
Not well.
Yeah,
and
not
they're
well,
reduced.
but...
They're reducing quality. And also the Steam Deck is $700. It's $650 or whatever.
Right.
So if you're expecting you have this thing in your backpack and you whip it out and you start playing like Last of Us Part 1 remastered or Spider-Man 2, it's like, well, maybe, but you'll be playing it for an hour and then the battery dies, or it's such it's not like a 4K screen or anything. It'll be some at most 1080p screen, and that's it.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Like it's the thing is, right, the reason why they're probably saying years away is they have to look at the market by then. We're talking about at least 2026, if not further away. What do they want this to be? Do they want this to be a late stage PS5 life extender? Do they want this to be a SKU that you bring in along with the PlayStation 6 to give people a different variety of SKU besides just having a digital edition? Say, oh, instead of having a digital edition, we're going to have a disc version console, and then we're going to have this as your discless thing that you can just take with you and play your PS5 games.
They should really slap a disc drive onto this thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that could, right? I guess they bring that to UMDs.
Yeah, high density UMDs.
You're right, exactly.
I think if they tried to play this as like a PS5 life extender, that would go incredibly bad, because the PS5 is already at the midway point in its lifetime. So let's say this thing came out in 2 years from now.
Right.
So, okay, that's well and good, but the PlayStation 6 is probably due out in about 4 years, or like 3 maybe.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, is this thing going to be PS6 compatible? Probably not. So all the people that buy it are like, well, we got this thing that only lasted for a year, or we have all these games for it from the last generation, what they're calling the last generation, but that's it. Would it run Spider-Man 3 or whatever, for Horizon Zero Dawn 3 or whatever? If they're like PlayStation 6 apps, like, no, probably not.
I think it's almost impossible for it to be a PlayStation 6 device that runs PlayStation 6 games natively, because by the time you have to start working on this, unless you're working on it in conjunction with the PlayStation 6,
right,
it's already going to be behind technology-wise. So imagine the tech that's going to be in the PlayStation 6. Can they get anything close to that in a PS5 portable device that allows you to play those games? Like, it has to be something that you are willing to deal with. Essentially, you're paying a PS5 handheld, and then when you decide to play it on your console, then you only get the graphics of the PS6 or whatever,
right?
Or even even a PS5 bordering on a like PS4 Pro kind of thing. Because it's going to depend on your Wi-Fi connection, on your all that stuff. I still, yeah.
If it's just like a higher end streaming device, that's one thing. But if they're going
Right.
to go like, oh, this thing has a 512 gigabyte flash drive in it or whatever, and you download games into this and run it, and be like, all right, good luck.
Yeah, I think that, and then could price be a problem where they just can't figure out how to make this plausible for people to buy essentially two different things, right?
Right.
Is this going to be something that I think you have to make it native, or you have to make it to where you can buy the games and play them on this thing without needing to own the other console? Because if you're going to tell me that I have to essentially pay somewhere between, let's put the conjunction of look what happened between the PSVR 2 and the PS5, right? In order for you to use the PSVR 2, you had to also own a PS5. So
Right.
if you don't own both of them, you're essentially making a, what is it, almost $1,200 purchase at once to play that. So are you asking me to do that again? Because that is then a very much something that removes people from being able to say, I want to do that, right? So if you have to make this an entirely separate SKU that I can buy games on it, play it without having to own the TV console, and I'm just deciding that I want to play my PS5, PS6 games at a lower res, and that's my decision, right?
Well, one alternative they could try to do is, let's say you bought like Spider-Man 2, for example, like physically for the PS5, if it could come with a code, like a one-time use code that says like, okay, if you add this you can add this code to your PSN account. You can't download it digitally to your console, but if you have this weird handheld thing, you can download to that instead.
Yeah.
Like a reduced quality version, or whatever.
Yeah, they could do like whatever this is going to be called, PlayStation handheld version. When you buy it, you get the PlayStation handheld version and the like you do with the PS5 and PS4 version now, right? Where you get both.
That's kind of what Sony did with the Vita in Japan, because they had like Sony in Japan had like your PSN account for the PSP, and it could look up like we know you have Tekken whatever, or like Persona 3 Portable. So we can add these games to your like PSN account for the Vita and do it that way. They couldn't do it with America, because of piracy concerns, I think. But they did it for Japan, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I just think that, to me, I don't think you have to have it come out with the PS6, because we've seen this. We're in the midlife of the PS5, and we're still getting PS4 games, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. I think we're still going to get PS4 games for a while.
Right.
So I think this is something that people just kind of have to understand, that we're not going to have these cold hard generation stopped things anymore. I think with the way that the economy works, the way that people's pocketbooks are kind of strapped, and I don't see that changing in a while. The way that consoles are going to be more expensive. The PS5 Pro's price is not. I think that's going to be the standard price of your console next go around, because I think they're going to have to justify giving you more hard drive space, because the games are going to be bigger.
Right.
And why not? So they're going to justify that we have to give you 2 terabytes of space, or a conglomerate of some of that, plus the other tech that's going to be in that, or whatever is going to be worth the money that you're going to say is the cost of that. So if you're going to say that's the baseline, right, then how much cheaper could you make the handheld, right? Could you make the handheld $600, $500 and say, okay, here's your cheaper option, and if you want the big console, you're going to pay $700, $800?
I think they might try, but I think the other problem they're going to run into is, like, if they buy this thing, it'll only run PlayStation stuff. People really like the Steam Deck because it can tie into Steam, obviously.
Exactly.
But you can flip it to like Linux mode or whatever, and run whatever the hell you want, and download a whole bunch of weird crap to it. So that'll be another limiting factor.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too, how Sony plays that, because we know Xbox, that's going to be their one like card up their sleeve, is they're already very open, right? So would they make this handheld open to working with other stores? Whereas we know how PlayStation is about their walled garden. We'll let you play our games on PC later, but we want you to be in our ecosystem and only in ours. And
right.
You can remote play with your other things, but we'll see how that goes. I think first of all, Sony has to at some point themselves announce this, because Sony has not officially said that they're working on this. This is just people talking about people reporting on, talking to sources that they are working on it. And it would make sense for them to work on it, because we're going to have the Switch 2, which is going to make this even more probably. We already had the PC portable, Steam Deck, ROG Ally, whatever, that have kind of blown this up. And they also run into the problem of, do they come out too late? And by the time they come out, nobody cares about PlayStation or Xbox, for that matter, having their own handhelds. And this just becomes a device that they make and not a lot of people buy. But hey, people said that about the Portal, and then look at how much that thing sold. So
right,
maybe that means that we can have a native device, or they keep iterating on the Portal and keep doing things with it. I have a feeling that maybe PlayStation 6 games will be played streaming, but we'll see how that goes when we get to that.
Yeah.
But I think the merging of generations is going to happen more, and especially with the rumor going around that the reason why they chose, which I do believe that is important, with the way that Microsoft has made it important, the way that I think PlayStation made sure that they made it important, the way that they have really bolstered their classics lineup with the PS Plus recently as well. I think that Sony has started to realize that the back catalog is also important, and being able to let people play those games is important. So that rumor about they needed the AMD chip to be in the PlayStation 6 as well, because they want to make sure that whole back catalog from PS4, PS5 on continues on, because those merging generations are going to just keep continuing. We're not going to get the cold, we believe in generations thing, and no more PS5 games are going to come out anymore. That's probably going to happen with this generation too. We're going to have PS5 games come well into the PS6 generation as well, because those graphics lines keep blurring,
Yeah.
And when the PS5 is going to get cheaper, people are going to buy PS5s more than they are going to buy the PS5 Pro or even the PS6 when that comes out. So, we'll see. But, something that could possibly make people buy more Sony consoles, or at least Sony games anyway, is this other big rumor that is going around, which that one technically has some truth to it, because it's been confirmed by this other company. There was a report from Reuters that came out a couple weeks ago, almost basically the Monday we were going to do the show, that there is a letter of intent that has been sent over to Kadokawa Corporation from Sony to possibly acquire them. And of course, Kadokawa is the majority owner of From Software, who has the Elden Ring and Dark Souls and other down the line versions of their whole family of IP, along with Acquire Studio, which they're the folks that worked on the Mario and Luigi Brothership game, and of course the Octopath Traveler games, and Spike Chunsoft, which they have some. They worked on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and then of course they have their own lineup of games as well that they work on. So that's a big library of games that would then be owned by Sony. But not even going to the video game part of it, sticking with what we probably know is the truth, considering their purchases of Funimation and Crunchyroll, is that they want to take another big piece of the pie in the anime and manga, and I don't know about the light novel and other stuff space in Japan. So this kind of behooves them to keep going down that market. There's a I'm gonna just talk about it because it's out there, but I don't really like talking about rumors in that way because it doesn't feel like it has the foundation that this does. There's a rumor going around that there's some Korean corporation that is possibly trying to do a hostile takeover of Kadokawa, which they've already done with K-pop, and supposedly Kadokawa is running over to Sony to try to get them to buy them instead of letting this Korean company, similar to that Vivendi and Ubisoft thing that happened many years ago, is kind of the light that it's been painting under. And then, of course, the rumors of Tencent doing that to Ubisoft now. Of course, got to remember that Sony only owns 2% of Kadokawa. Tencent actually owns more of it, and Tencent actually owns more of FromSoft than Sony as well.
Yeah.
So this is not something where, like the Microsoft deal, where Microsoft just kind of has to get Activision to agree, and then, oh hey, we're just gonna happen. This is Sony has to deal with this letter of intent, and then they got to go and make a bunch of stuff happen. They got to make sure Tencent is cool with the deal. They got to make sure all these other people that own Kadokawa, which there's a big list, are okay with the deal. And then it kind of has to happen. According to the same reports that have come out recently, supposedly this whole thing could move forward in a couple of weeks, so we could see further action being taken by both companies. So it looks like this is happening more likely than not happening, right? It seems to be that this is, especially with the stock price going up like 50%, in for Kadokawa when this was announced, which led them to reporting on, which led them to actually confirming that Sony had sent this letter of intent, because they have to be beholden to their shareholders and let them know what's going on. So do you feel like we're just kind of waiting for the ball to drop on this and it's going to happen? Do you want to see it happen? And what do you think is going to happen, I guess, with the gaming side? Because I know you're not a big anime person, as far as like, are we going to get the newest PlayStation Studio from software?
I think it could have. I think it's probably likely to happen, but I think the gaming part, it's a consideration. But like the anime thing is a lot more what they actually want. I mean, them getting from software would be cool, but even if they get from software, like they don't own the people necessarily. Like Miyazaki could just leave, or they could just, whoever could just start up their own company. So that's one thing. I think, if it happens, good. Because I think like From Software would be a good fit for Sony, or they obviously want it. I don't think it'll matter much because like, we're trying to get a Bloodborne remake. So
I mean, maybe that's something that's led them to not doing a Bloodborne remake or a Bloodborne 2, is they want to, like, they don't feel like they can really get From Software to, hey, make this game, right? Like From Software kind of wants to do their own thing. And I know Miyazaki's talked about he would be cool with a Bloodborne remake or a Bloodborne 2 or whatever, but one thing is to say that, and then another thing is to actually go and do that, right? Especially with how popular Elden Ring has become. Do you want to take away from that popularity to go work on this other thing that may not be as popular? I definitely think that, number one, the way we've seen it work with Bungie is, I think Bungie is a different situation where Jim Ryan bit on that to start off the live service thing and it didn't work. I think this is a much more safer play, as far as I don't see Dark Souls games all of a sudden people are not liking them. That's a genre that's here to stay. It's got its imitators. It's got games that have jumped off of that and then become great on their own. It is a genre that is not going anywhere. And it's single player, right? You don't you can do multiplayer with it, but you don't need to go be online and have this content for it all the time. It can be its own game and then you go on to the next thing. So I think they could just do what Microsoft does with both of theirs and go, you will stay third party. You will stay, we will own you. We will get a bigger cut of what you make, but you will continue to make games on Xbox and PC and Nintendo. I don't think that they will all of a sudden become a PlayStation studio because that hinders the amount of money that you can make. Now, obviously, if Xbox decides that they are no longer making consoles after a while, then it won't really matter, right? And maybe Sony can kind of like go on that and hedge their bets that way. But I don't think they're going to become the next PlayStation studio. I just don't see that. I don't know that FromSoft would be too obliged to want to do that either. I think FromSoft's a big enough company that if they wanted to do what Bungie did, and in the contract say we elect to continue to be third party, I think Sony would in a way feel like they have to honor that. Especially if they want Miyazaki to stay, right? That
Let me ask you this doomsday scenario. I know what you're gonna say, but if Sony had only one option, like to buy FromSoft or to buy Kadokawa or SquareSoft or Square Enix, what do you think they would do?
I think they'd still buy FromSoft, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. So do I. Yeah. I think that's a better. That's a better shot. Yeah.
I think they have less to deal with at that point. There's less. Square Enix has a lot of properties that they. I think this is part of the problem with this Kadokawa deal is Sony doesn't really want all of the stuff that's. Kadokawa is a huge company. They own so much stuff that's not just manga, anime, and video games. They own magazines, books, stuff that they probably don't want to deal with that involves those novels and books. I'm sure that they probably have like other companies lined up to probably sell some of the stuff that they don't want off to. Like, they technically own Anime News Network. They technically own Gematsu. They technically own, or not Gematsu. No, I'm thinking of Famitsu. I'm sorry. So it's like Famitsu. So it's like, they have all of these other things that they all of a sudden have to own. And it's not just owning a video game company and their IP and then the anime studios and the manga production houses and all that stuff. It's the other stuff that is involved in this. I wonder what the price is going to be. And then also, like, who's leaking this? Is this Kadokawa or is it Sony? And is it Kadokawa because maybe they want to see how far they can get this bidding war going on? Or are they trying to prevent a bidding war? That's another thing that's like kind of going around. Are they trying to see if Tencent kind of gets involved and says, hey, but we'll offer you this, or maybe they're trying to avoid being bought by Chinese companies, completely by Chinese companies. So it's like, we have to see how this all fleshes out. But let's say the deal does happen at the end of the day. I don't know that this is a great thing for video games, as I said, when the Microsoft Activision Blizzard thing happened, because we saw what happened with Activision Blizzard. Even though this is a Japanese company, somewhere down the line, this is going to result in people losing jobs, right? So that's something that you have to,
It's not public, or it's not like design focused jobs. It'd be like, oh, they're losing their accounting department, or they're losing their PR representatives. But it's like, well, because they don't need two PR departments. They don't need to,
That's another thing too. How much meshing is there going to be between? Oh, Sony already has Crunchyroll News. Do we need Anime News Network? Did Sony already have this? Do we need this? Like how many websites and books companies and all this other stuff are going to get shut down if there's not somebody that's willing to buy them from Sony? So like that's something else you have to think about if this whole deal goes down. But I feel like there's been rumors before of Sony wanting to buy Kadokawa, but they only wanted to buy the video game stuff. They didn't want to, and the anime stuff. They didn't want to buy all this other stuff. But this may be the only way they can get the stuff they want, is they have to just buy the whole kit and caboodle. So,
they could buy it and then to spin it off.
Right, exactly.
Now you're on your own.
So, but for what it does to the anime industry is not great. As in, they already own a whole anime like distribution house and production house and all that, A1 Pictures, all that, Aniplex. So like for them to own more of that in Kadokawa is not great because they have a monopoly there. And would the legislative bodies even care about that part? right? Because it's nowhere near anything close to what Microsoft was doing with Activision, where they're taking the biggest video game on planet Earth and possibly making that exclusive. Even though From Software and the games they make are very popular and big sellers, especially Elden Ring, it's still nowhere near the bigger piece of the pie that would have been. That is what Activision Blizzard is. So
if Sony could somehow buy Kadokawa and Square, it still wouldn't equal Activision. So
yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like from a gaming perspective alone, there isn't a lot here for them to stop it aside from, the whole, Sony could decide to make these exclusive, which again, Sony could do just like Microsoft did and go, hey, we'll make you a 10-year deal, blah, blah, blah. Here's that. And then
if this somehow went through, I could see them going like, okay, we're going to make Elden Ring 2 multi-platform, but whatever new thing they got working on, that'll be us only.
Right, yeah, like you're going to make a game for us that's not Bloodborne, that's something else that we own,
Born into blood.
That's only PlayStation, and then we're gonna have you can go make Elden Ring or Dark Souls, whatever, for everybody else.
Yeah, here's another Armored Core.
If that lets Armored Core keep going, then cool. But Armored Core actually sold pretty well.
Yeah, last one, yeah.
So yeah, I just think that it sucks for the anime part of it. I don't really want to see this happen. Like, we don't need more consolidation in that industry, but that's the thing is I don't know that regulating bodies care that much about it to stop this from happening. So if this actually gets announced as, hey, we're acquiring them, I don't think it's going to take too long before this actually closes. It's not going to be this prolonged 2-year thing that the Microsoft Activision deal was. So, but again, there's a lot of process to this that has to go on. But that's why the title of this thing is moves that Sony's making that can impact them from 2025 and beyond, because this would definitely help the bottom line if they can get this all sorted out, get the stuff out of the system that doesn't make money for them or that costs them too much, kind of get it focused in. Unfortunately, again, it leads to possibly people losing jobs and stuff, which I don't like seeing. I'm not promoting that at all. It's just the reality of the situation that this could very well happen and what that means. But also, we saw it with the last time that administration was in, how much moving and shaking is probably going to happen now that we have a change of the guard that's going to happen with the FTC and very many other places that in government, but I don't want to get into politics. I'm just saying that's a very real thing that could be happening. And we could see more M&A start happening again because, there's less restrictions that are going to be there. So let's get into a few other things that are not Sony related before we get into the Sony related stuff again. Something that I thought was interesting because I remember when we talked about Star Wars Outlaws, one of the things that you kind of had an issue with was that the stealth is not great in this game. And the way that it causes you to fail missions and stuff is something that hinders it. Now there is apparently an update that is going to happen that they're going to remove most, if not all, of the stealth required stuff in the missions for Star Wars Outlaws. Does this make this game immediately better now? No. Okay.
I can emphatically say that because it still has other problems. It having early insta-fail stealth missions is a bummer, but as long as you're not dumb, you can get through it. You may fail once or twice or something, but keep trying. The stealth is it's not bad. It's just very mechanical, and you don't have a good indication of how far away are the enemies to see you or not. But once you get the stealth, you get a stealth shot basically, or something that can take out one soldier at a time and then it reloads slowly, silently. So that helps. Or you can send your little rat thing out to go distract enemies and run up behind them and hit them and they're gone. My problem with the game is it's more story focused. It's okay, you got these 4 syndicates, but you can't just work for the rebellion or work for the Empire. It'd be It's a game called Outlaws. It's not a game called Good Outlaws. Like, you should be able to be a bad guy in the game. And if you don't work for the Empire to get money, go for it.
I mean, we don't know how much Disney had a hand in
But well, yeah, but
removing
that's
the opportunity of choice that you have in that. But
yeah, but you're literally stating the issue. It's like one of the best Star Wars games ever was TIE Fighter. That
right,
was a game where you literally were a TIE Fighter pilot, working for the Empire. Like, there's no like, oh, you switch sides, or like, oh, you suddenly realize the Empire is bad and you join up with the rebels. It's like, no, you're working for the Empire through and through, and you're just backstabbing your way to get up there. Like, go for it. Like, they want to have this whole like, they want to have it like be like nebulous, like, oh, is the are the rebels really good, or like this instead of black and white, it's like this gray cloud. But it's like they have it still doesn't apply to the Empire, and it should. Like, but that's my Star Wars rant.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much they really can't change the story. Obviously, they can add to it with DLC and whatnot.
Yeah, I
Which,
know the Lando thing is out now, but I don't care.
yeah,
I installed that game, months ago, and I'll probably never go back to it.
I do think that it is helpful for people to, okay, if you fail, you just go straight into combat instead of having to deal with the whole, oh man, I got to go back to the last
Right.
checkpoint and all that
But
stuff.
yeah, like them giving you the option is good, because there are plenty of moments in that game where like you get spotted accidentally or whatever, and it's you just put up your hands and you get thrown out of the base or whatever. So yeah, if you gave the option, is like, okay, I pull my gun out suddenly, and like maybe have it be like either a dice roll or some quick time event, like, hey, if I can shoot this guy really quickly, he won't raise the alarm.
Yeah.
Or hey, I just alerted the entire base and I have to go run to the vent and hide for 20 minutes until they go back on their routines.
Yeah, I haven't played that game, so I can't comment on it. But
buy, buy, a phys- buy a physical copy, play through it, and then download the patch and see how it changes.
I guess yeah, that's true. As well. Yeah, I mean, look, that's cool that Ubisoft is trying to do whatever they can. Obviously, they're in a situation where they need that game to sell, right?
Right.
They don't have Assassin's Creed coming out soon now. This is like their big holiday game.
Right. And
So yeah,
it's kind of a fool's errand, because that game came out months ago and didn't get great reviews then, and no publication is going to re-review it and go like, hey, if you have patch 1.4, it fixes all the complaints of our original review. Like,
yeah, you're right about that. Nobody's gonna. Nobody really does that anymore. And if they did, they're not gonna waste their time with it, because if you decide to buy it on a sale, that's your decision at this point.
yeah.
But again, good for Ubisoft to be doing that, at least acknowledging that they made mistakes and trying to fix it. Obviously, there's a product behind that they're trying to sell, but still.
Did you see the report a few days ago that Ubisoft was pissed about Steam charts?
Why? Because I didn't see this, but
yeah, it was good. It's because Steam charts like lets you see how many people are playing the game.
Right.
Like, it's not exact, but it's if they say Steam like 1,000 people are playing Justice League, it's not going to be like, oh, it's off by 10,000. It's like, no, it might be off by like 50 or 100 people or something, but it's not
right.
Huge. And Ubisoft doesn't like that Valve makes the stuff available to Steam charts, or really anyone, because they can't lie to investors, and they can't say like, "Oh, Star Wars Outlaws is a huge success. We have hundreds of thousands of people playing the game," and it's like, no, you've had 2,500 people playing the game total.
I mean,
maybe
okay,
max 3,000, but
here's the thing: they also have player trackers now with the
right.
consoles, so it's not like this is just Steam, right? It's just Steam is very immediate, whereas the other stuff you have to wait for Sakana to do the report and all this other stuff. Like it takes some time, so you could technically have your oh, this is outdated, but right now there's like this many people playing, and it's like, well, no, because now somebody can just go out and go, well, hey, this is what it says on Steam right now, and
Right.
yeah, I get it. I'm sure that's annoying for a bunch of people, right? That only, but I also think that's why you don't need to just go off the people that just use Steam shards to go and be like, haha, your game is dead. I agree. That's a terrible thing to do. Like, you shouldn't be using Steam charts for that. It really should just be for like internal logistics and not for like console war fodder, but people do it, and unfortunately it sucks. But it is good to have that metric out there to tell you, man, should I really invest in this game? There's not a lot of people playing it. Okay. I mean, it's pro consumer, so I am totally down with that existing, whether Ubisoft likes it or not. That's just them trying to find excuses, honestly. It's,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. The thing was that Ubisoft wants Valve to limit player count visibility on Steam to present a more favorable picture to investors.
look,
And
Ubisoft.
it's like, well, I can
Right.
see why, because it's like, yeah, Outlaws has 2,500 all-time players. Even Fallen Order had about 60,000.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, no shit. Ubisoft wants to hide that, but also like should have made a better game.
No, I agree with you, and I
Yeah,
think anybody would agree with you that essentially the problem is that it didn't live up to the expectations that they sought out for it. They were expecting it to sell way more than it has. I mean, I know that there are people that really do enjoy that game. But unfortunately, yeah,
I didn't hate it. I beat it, so I moderately enjoyed
yeah,
it enough. But it's not like anything special.
yeah.
That's the thing.
Again, it
So
was supposed to be that next great Star Wars game that everybody is supposed to love. Like it's supposed to be the Jedi equivalent for Ubisoft, and it wasn't, right?
yeah,
So it's sucks for Ubisoft that again they've continued to go down this path right now where like it seems like everything is not a hit for them, and they need that right now. So speaking of not hits, at least as far as the extended content for this game, Mortal Kombat 1, according to a rumor, that again, we don't really know the basis of, but considering that report that we talked about a couple of episodes ago from David Zaslav about like Mortal Kombat is supposed to be one of the pillars of their gaming initiative going forward, this doesn't scream great when you're having to cancel content for it. But apparently, Mortal Kombat 1 has the character pack that's out right now, the combat pack, has not sold well enough that it's having NetherRealm or Warner Brothers or whoever has to make this decision consider canceling a second DLC from Mortal Kombat 1 and the third character pack. I know you like Mortal Kombat well enough. Do you think this is like, does this just mean that people are just kind of over it at this point, or is just like the character's not good enough for?
I don't think the characters are necessarily good enough because you got Cyrax and Sector who should have been in the game originally,
Right?
and then you get like Conan the Barbarian and Ghostface, like, and a bunch of other, like the T-1000 is kind of cool, but that's it. So it's kind of mediocre guest characters. I heard the story's not good at all, or what they've tried to do with it. That's another problem. But I think it's just kind of burnout. Like they keep kind of trying to pump and dump into this game, and I don't think it's designed for it necessarily. I mean, Street Fighter isn't really either. Like they did that one big character pack, and I think they're trying to make the second one, but no one seems to care either. Like I think they can only limit it to 2 character packs, and that's it. Then you move on to the next game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and also like as far as popular as Mortal Kombat kind of is, in America, it's not popular necessarily in Japan at all. And it might be on Evo, but it's not like the number 1 game at Evo by any stretch. It's
Right.
usually Street Fighter or Tekken, or so. it's hard to kind of cultivate that fan base.
Yeah, I mean, also it does help when you have. I do think that it like having Injustice like alternate with it allow people to kind of miss Mortal Kombat and like
Yeah,
have
because
that other game that
it's
you're
such a known
playing.
quantity now, or
Yeah,
it just comes out every 2 years, and it's like, yep, getting another one of these, and now we had the guest characters or whatever, but it's like, okay, you're not really like you're innovating in kind of the wrong ways. You're making this game more complicated, and you kind of should be aiming for like more. That's what Street Fighter 6 did. Actually, it was making it a little more approachable to like new players.
right.
And Mortal Kombat is going the other way, and it's like, well, it's hard to grow the player count of this game when you're facing it against someone who can do an 80% combo against you and like set 50 hits or whatever, and you get like no chance to like guard against it or anything.
Yeah, I, I agree with that. I think making it more approachable for players is always a better deal. At least you get more people in the door. But then
Or just have it like be like casual combat and then competitive combat, or. But they just
yeah,
have kind of competitive, so it's like, yeah, it's a bunch of people on Twitch who are crazy, and if you or I try to play, we just get owned instantly. It's like, well, I guess I'm not just gonna play this again.
I mean that's a lot of fighting games in general. I feel like
But
when
also,
Marvel. Yeah, go
like,
ahead.
they're kind of like nickel and diming with the microtransactions and the whole
Yeah,
stupid, like, their whole like live service thing is just really off-putting because they keep trying it and it gets like more and more desperate, and it's like, stop, you fuckers. Like,
that's Warner Brothers in general for you
yeah, I
right
know,
now.
but it's
Yeah,
like that's
so
what's killing their games. So,
yeah,
or at least the one game that didn't do that was I mean, it had some microtransactions, but not much. Was Hogwarts,
yeah.
and I said, good.
Well, mainly because that's only really a single player game, so they couldn't do it
Well, like
necessarily.
the cosmetics, well, the microtransactions were just like cosmetic crap.
Right.
But it's like, okay, but yeah, I'd rather have that. I mean, if they're gonna have it in here, like, that's the best way to do it. But the way they do it in like Justice League and Mortal Kombat and NBA,
Yeah.
that's not NBA.
It's
I mean, that's 2K. But it's like that crap. Just like it's gross. I don't want to even play the game.
I don't blame you on that front. It's but yeah.
And
Going go ahead.
we get like 4 different currencies to keep track of. It's like, oh, now I have crypt coins, and now I have time crystals, and now I have the premium currency, and it's like, what is going
That's
on
too
here?
much. That's too
Yeah.
But going back to Sony here for a moment, that kind of ends our like sort of, I guess, longer news stuff. Shuhei Yoshida is leaving PlayStation after 31 years.
Yep.
As of January 15, 2025, he has said he wants to stay in the industry. If he can, it doesn't. I don't know. He's not being coy like other people have, but maybe he just doesn't kind of have a plan in place for what he's going to do immediately. But maybe at some point he'd like to move on to another studio. It's going to be interesting to see what he does next. But he's in with PlayStation from the beginning, since the PlayStation project in '93. He's gone on to be the head of Worldwide Studios. He was probably the person in charge during the most lucrative time, right? As far as like all these modern games that we see, and then also like their flourish into indies. And then he's gone on, it would be technically seen as a demotion, right? Or whatever, going from Worldwide Studios to then going to be sort of like the head of the indie games, right? The guy that is like the liaison for indie games, that he goes and talks to the indie studios, and he's actually there in the meetings and stuff, which there's been, interviews with indie devs that talk about how he's there and it's kind of intimidating, right? Shuhei Yoshida of all people. But he's a champion for indies. I think he talked about Journey being like his favorite game and everything. What legacy do you feel like Shuhei Yoshida leaves? And then what do you think does this mean anything for PlayStation? I mean, he's 60, he's in that age where I guess, it's more towards retirement than there. But what do you feel like with the Shuhei here?
I mean, he wasn't as front facing. I would say he's pretty comparable to Iwata from Nintendo.
He was kind of like part of that group that was front facing with Sony. Like he was the guy that would go talk to the media, tell people, I don't want this PR guy here. I'll tell you whatever. But he is kind of like the last bastion of those people. Like now, Sony is this like company that just hides behind the wall of we're Sony and we don't really go out and talk to you.
Right. But I mean, well, the more personable CEO, the more personable like head guy,
right?
And the guy who like it's the same thing when like Iwata, when the Wii U kind of failed for like the first year, he like lowered his own salary to like keep Nintendo kind of going. Like you could tell that like Yoshida cared about Sony or the PlayStation brand itself, and they made mistakes, and he owned up. Or I mean, it wasn't him directly, but he would own up to it. So, overall positive influence on Sony itself and PlayStation. Kind of a shame, but I don't think Sony's like forcing him out or anything. He's probably just tired of that like rat race.
Yeah, he's kind of done all he can do right at that point. Like you've been at the head of the company, you've been up at the top, right? And you went and did something else to kind of possibly run out your contract. But he was actually doing that job. It wasn't just we gave you a job to do something, right? He went and did it and proved that to be a lucrative thing for Sony too. I mean, they happened to get a bunch of he was key in even getting Stellar Blade for Sony, with Shift Up. So very recently he was very important. So this is not something he's resting on laurels from like years ago. So Shuhei Yoshida is a big loss as far as a name. And again, like a last bastion of that group of people from the PS3, PS4 era that were, the Jack Trentons, Sean Layden's, those people that were like front facing, talk to you. It made Sony feel like a personable company, whereas now it feels like they're kind of not.
I mean, the one guy that kind of have left is like Marc Cerny, but he's not like dynamic or he's not like personable.
He's the if you want to go and hear all about the tech inside of your console,
yeah, exactly.
Talk to him.
Yeah, he'll give a 20-minute lecture on it or on whatever. But
yeah, I mean, it's just it sucks to see like that time again. It's like the whole like we're all getting older thing, and I think it's just you will grow up now. Our children, and I will grow up, and the generation behind us will grow up knowing PlayStation is just this monolith company that doesn't really talk to people. They were like sort of the things we say about Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, whatever. Now on the Xbox side, they were the ones that, along with was it Andy Boyes, him and Boyes having that Adam Boyes. I'm sorry, him and Boyes having that thing at E3 where they both are there, and this is how you play. This is how you borrow games on PlayStation. Yeah. Like that is iconic for him as far as like you remember him from that. And just that he can joke and be funny in that way, and it's like just saying, and Sony doesn't really have that kind of person anymore.
I mean, that's a problem of kind of all three of the companies at this point. Like Nintendo they don't have a Reggie anymore. They don't really have like a spokesman.
Yeah,
Sony doesn't. They're losing their current one, and Phil tries to be the Xbox one, but he kind of comes across now as like too phony.
Phil's problem is that now we know he's just one of the people that help in making the decisions. He's not the guy that makes decisions, right? Like,
yeah, and he can say whatever he wants, but it's like, yeah, but he has to answer to someone else. So
exactly, yeah. So he's just he used to have that feeling before this whole Activision Blizzard deal where it's like, oh, he said something, oh, it's going to happen, right? You still kind of get that a little bit, but it's still like well, if somebody comes and says no, it's just all of a sudden not going to happen, and then he has to start spinning wheels and talking backwards. And whereas like, Nintendo really has missed that whole era of when Miyamoto was younger and wanted to be on camera more, or was okay with being on camera more, and then Iwata and Reggie being there.
That whole like Star Fox thing with the puppets was great.
That was I miss those moments in Nintendo Directs where they could be funny. Now it's like, okay, those guys have charm to them, but they're just there to be. They're just doing the business, right?
Now
like
the directs, you got nothing because it's just like, here's some text from the screen and then a snapping noise and that's it. Like there's no one like hosting it.
I agree.
It's just some like name or like faceless voice.
And you really feel that with the state of plays is too. Like, okay, Sean Benson comes on there and I think she does a good job or whatever, but it's still very kind of like static and it doesn't, it doesn't flow. It doesn't feel like there's some of that too. And I think this is huge for like, I wonder what this does at all to sort of like Sony's indie game like relations. Does this hurt that at all? Because Shuhei was very involved in that. The second party kind of thing, like who is that person behind him that's going to be doing that? And are they going to be anywhere near as good as doing that for Sony? That's going to be an interesting thing, like moving forward, that I don't think we're going to feel immediately.
This is Sony's time to finally bring back Kevin Butler.
Yeah, that's maybe that's the time.
After they sued that guy, like a real awkward conversation.
And before we get into the quick hit stuff here, there was an interview with Inverse that Masaki Hayasaka did. He's of course one of the producers for Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake, and he was kind of talked about like if there was a game that he felt should be made in the HD 2D art style. He did say that there's a risk of making too many of these games, right? And then it kind of runs out the novelty of it. But he said if there was a game that would prove fruitful from that treatment, it's because Final Fantasy VI was used as a reference for HD 2D at first. He mentions that Final Fantasy VI should get that HD 2D treatment. Of course, they had a little bit of it in the Pixel Remaster, I think during the opera scene or whatnot, but obviously the full game is not HD 2D.
Right.
Do you think that that's possibly down the line? Do you think I feel like it's sort of like a Chrono Trigger situation where it's like a break the glass. We need something that's going to make money. Those two games are kind of there in sort of like, okay, we'll pull these out when we really need something to sell. I don't know if they're necessarily working on it right now, but what do you think?
I guess it depends on how much of an HD. Will it just be like a Slate remaster, or it is going to be like Final Fantasy VII remake, something on that scale?
No, I don't think they would do that. They already said they wouldn't anywhere touch that because it would take them double the time, I think, of remake. So,
I think the problem is, I would say even more than Final Fantasy VII is Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI have like the super diehard fans, and if you stray from it one speck, they will become enraged.
Yeah, I think they are for me the two that if you're gonna do anything else with HD2D, I think those are the two that most people want.
Of the 2D stuff or in general?
The HD 2D. Like, let's say that they did put a kibosh on it for a while after Dragon Quest 2 and 1 remake, and they go, you know what? Let's kind of put this away for a while. It's starting to kind of not sales wise because Dragon Quest 3 has done extremely well. In fact, I think the Switch version, which is something I forgot to bring up when we were talking about the handheld, that's another reason why PlayStation might want to bring that handheld back, is because the Switch version in Japan outsold the PS version like 8-1 or something like that. So like Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D is selling really well. So it's not that you couldn't do that, but let's see if there's any diminishing returns when you get to Dragon Quest 2 and 1. And we've already, we saw that, I don't know if it has anything to do, but, Triangle Strategy got delisted from the Switch store. Is that going to come back? We did see Octopath Traveler come back. But they didn't go ahead with Triangle Strategy 2. So there's one game series that's not continuing that is HD 2D. right? We don't know what's going to happen with Octopath Traveler 3 now. Let's say Sony acquires them. What's going to happen with Acquire Studio with that? Um, you know, does Square Enix start taking this in house, and how many games are out there that really, you say, okay, should get this treatment or whatever, that doesn't start bringing in where it's like we're spending more money than we're getting back, right, on doing this. So
Right.
yeah, like I don't think we should start just making huge lists of, I want this in HD 2D or whatever, because I don't think we're going to get that. But if there was one or two games that I feel like they got to be on the list somewhere before you decide to scrap HD 2D, I feel like those two games definitely got to be on that for sure. I hope. Anyway,
Yeah.
But cool to see somebody reference it, at least maybe bring it up into the zeitgeist for it to be discussed there. Since we're talking about Final Fantasy, this is where we're going to start getting into like this is going to be some quicker news. Maybe we don't spend a whole lot of time unless you got a lot to say about it. But Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth will not have DLC definitively. There was rumors that they wouldn't. There was rumors that they might have Queen's Blood DLC. When the game first came out and people love Queen's Blood a lot, they were talking about they might do more with it. Now, Naoki Hamaguchi has officially said there will not be any story DLC similar to the Yuffie DLC that we had with that turned into Remake Intergrade. What people really want to see is that the third game is going to happen faster, which I agree. I really kind of want to see that game happen. If that means it happens in 2027 instead of 2028 because they didn't have to spend a year making DLC, I'm happy about that. Did you want to see like a Vincent DLC or something, or are you good with just waiting till part 3?
I'm good with waiting because he factors so little in the story. I mean, how want to have like a Sid DLC, like
Yeah,
and it's kind of the same thing they did with original or Rebirth. I mean, they had the Yuffie one, but I don't think a ton of people played that thing necessarily.
yeah.
And they already, I mean, they activated her pretty well in the crew. So, you don't need it. They might spin off Queen's Blood if they really want to, but I could see it also like them just having it just be this like weird thing, and they don't want to like have to keep supporting it or something like that.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's going to play a big role in part 3. So like you could essentially make it have its own like it already did a lot in Rebirth. So like you could extend that into being its own thing even more in part 3, and that's how you kind of do this would have been the Queen's Blood DLC, but we decided to put it in here.
Right.
So, I know you weren't like a super fan of the game like, Randy and I were. So I feel like this is kind of an interesting thing to ask you. He talked about the mini games, right? That he was going to lessen the amount of mini games perhaps in Final Fantasy Rebirth, in part 3.
Right.
And that's kind of been a mixed like reaction to it. There's been a lot of people that didn't like the mini games at all. They didn't want them to be part of the main story at all. There's people that, give me all the mini games. All right. This being the supposed last one, are you of the mind that like give me the most content possible with this, or you want them to kind of like trim this down more?
Well, I think he also said that he wanted to make the platinum trophy easier.
Yeah, that I totally agree with. Please, I don't want to have to replay the whole game.
Yeah, if you want to have mini games and have it be fine, but have it be optional. And then
Right.
have them be good, because even some of the ones in Rebirth weren't great, like the soccer thing with
We're at 13,
13. Yeah, or the racing around the town on the fucking scooter.
Yes, that was annoying. Agree.
So like, yeah, I mean the biggest one is the gambits and gears thing, or whatever the fuck it was called.
Yeah, that was.
But I even disliked the. And it was really minor, but I still disliked it. When you had to like fight all the cactars in the cactar arena.
Okay, yeah, that one with the goblin guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that sucked. Or it is kind of cool to see a lot of that stuff in like the gold saucer.
Right, yeah,
I think
that
I did some of that. I did more of that than you, or some like I finished all that stupid chocobo racing bullshit.
yes.
But
But that was fun because that
uh,
was more like Mario Kart. You know, they just nailed like Chocobo Mario Kart. That was even better than the actual like Chocobo racing game that they had separate, you
yeah,
know.
so
Um,
I think
yeah.
some of it's fine, but make it optional or please.
Yeah, I agree with that. Don't bake that into the platinum. Don't have us have to do that on hard mode. That's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
Don't make us have to like replay the game to I mean I get it if you want to make people have to do some things on hard mode, but just not the mini games. Like make it about like the fights or something, story related or whatever, like they did with the remake where you had to go back and do the three to get you had to get all three Tifa dresses or whatever, something like that kind of has either has something to do with the story or the combat and not a mini game that maybe you're just never going to be good enough at. Like my God, that chocobo flying thing, I
yeah,
just couldn't get that good at it. So
right.
you know,
I think I eventually. I don't think I got a gold medal it, but I think I did get it all. But it's like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm bashing my head against this one fucking like race 3 or whatever
yeah,
for like
exactly.
2 hours, and I'm like, this isn't fun at all.
Yeah, exactly. And then make it more apparent that they're optional because I agree with some folks I was talking to on Blue Sky about they really don't make it obvious that you can quit out of that Queen's Blood tournament on the ship and nothing's
Yeah,
going to happen to you. So like you're literally if you suck at Queen's Blood, which I know there's people that just they don't get it
right.
and they're having to bash their head against the wall to go and get to the final and beat Red 13 or whatever because they think that they're going to miss something story wise and you don't miss anything.
Yeah.
So, you know, might hopefully that would be something they consider there on that.
Yep.
Something cool that showed up today because tomorrow is officially the 30th anniversary of the launch of the PS1, of course, PlayStation's original console. If you boot up your PS5 and if you have it sit in rest mode like I do, you're gonna have to restart it. It will launch with the PS1 boot up, and then it'll say 30th anniversary, whatever. And you can also change the dashboard to match your favorite generation of PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I thought at first that because I had selected PS1, I thought that they had also added the different boot ups. And then I realized after I put it on PS2 and it didn't do it that it's like, oh, okay, it's only the dashboard and like the beep boop sounds or whatever. It's not the boot up too, but that would have been cool
Right.
if they added that in there. Because I do miss hearing that PS2 boot up sound. And the PS1 was cool too. But yeah.
Yeah, I did it.
That go
It's
ahead.
cool, but that should just be like a permanent option, or they should just sell themes like they used to.
I completely agree. Like, I hope this is Sony just trying to like get people to talk about it. And they always had this intention of leaving it, but they kind of want to make sure that people are interested in it. Because like if you're gonna feed into the nostalgia and have all this other stuff, which they released this nice sort of like tearjerker trailer along with that today to kind of like you'll have us remember about the 30 years of PlayStation or whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, just please don't make that limited. Like, have that stick around, and if they could possibly like add the boot ups or add other things to that, that would be so
Or
awesome.
I mean, if you go into the settings menu, there's like a new option for like PlayStation 30th anniversary. So
Yeah,
it's like,
that one
okay,
too.
just turn that to themes, and
Well, I mean,
like
they
you
didn't
used
even
to
bring
have.
back that exactly. That's one thing that I like don't understand, like how it took them so long to where now you could technically put like a picture or something back there, and it's like, man, people have wanted that the entire generation to have themes again. You
Right.
know,
Like themes, custom. I would say custom startup animations,
yeah.
sounds. Uh, yeah. Why not?
I mean, you could sell that. Like, you could sell sounds from a game or whatever, and have that be a
That
thing on your console.
I
Uh,
loved. I think it was Persona 5 Royal, because
mhm.
once you completed a character's chapter, basically you unlocked them as a theme for the system.
That's cool.
And
like
it was great. It's I beat the I forget the glasses chick. But I beat her dungeon.
Futaba.
Yeah, I beat
Yeah.
Futaba as her. I healed her, so now I
Yeah.
have her as an icon, or her. The entire menus on my PS4 is now decked out with her crap because it unlocked
Yeah.
it.
I agree. I had the Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff on mine for a while.
Yeah.
So it would have been cool to get to keep that
Right.
on there as well. But alas.
But
It is what it
it's
is.
the same thing that Microsoft is chucking their avatar system stuff.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that one makes more sense, but that's also on Microsoft's fault because they basically hid that.
Yeah, they
in
so
the
de-emphasize the avatar that they're
yeah.
like, well, it has low engagement. It's like, yeah, because no one knows about it because you hid it. Like,
You can't even you have to search for it. Like, and I'm talking about deep search for that
Yeah.
thing in the Series X or S like menus and stuff.
Right.
Mine's only there because I had it as my picture or whatever for a long time. And I mean, that's cool if you bought stuff from like a year ago to when they were supposed to take it down, which is like January 9th or whatever, they're gonna refund you. But
Right.
it's just like if you would have made that a bigger deal and kept making it a bigger deal, that it's there, I think more people would have used it. But Microsoft, your thing there.
Yeah, and they didn't.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, well, what do you expect then?
exactly. PlayStation, continuing with that, they have announced their essential and the premium games for this month. I wonder what they're working at that they haven't announced the extra stuff yet. But what's coming as part of the free games for this month, which you can download starting tomorrow, It Takes Two, of course, former Game of the Year winner for your PS4 and PS5, Aliens Dark Descent, and Temtem is the PS5 exclusive. I feel like Temtem's been on there before, if I'm not mistaken. So, but hey, it's a cool Pokemon-like if you want to go play that.
Yeah, I know you like it.
Yeah, I did. And It Takes Two is a wonderful, awesome game that if you have not played it yet, grab somebody in your family and go play that game because it is amazing. You will love it to pieces. And then the premium games, I think these games are like available where you can buy them, but they hadn't made them part of the PS3 or the premium yet. So you can now, starting December 10th, get Sly 2 Bandit Thieves and Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, and then Jack and Daxter the Precursor Legacy as well, that's all awesome. 3 amazing platformers. Go check them out if you love those the old style platformers. I love the Sly games, so for sure I'm gonna be looking into it. And also if you want to start a trial and maybe play a little bit of Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 like Marc has, there's a trial available starting tomorrow as well that you can check out. So
Cool.
Yeah, it's cool stuff happening. And of course, for you guys that complained that the opposite happened with Dino Crisis and Resident Evil's Director's Cut, where those were stuck on premium and you couldn't buy them a la carte, you can now buy them a la carte for $10 a piece. So you want to own the original
might be a little high, but it's still worth it.
they're going to do that tax a little bit
right.
on that. So on the Nintendo side of things, they've added some games. The probably headline one is Donkey Kong Land for the Game Boy. It is not a port of Donkey Kong Country. It's sort of like its own game.
Well, it's like their take on it basically, but it's good. Yeah. I remember playing that as a kid.
I remember enjoying Vector Man as a kid as well. When I went to a friend's house, I didn't have a Genesis, and Toe Jam and Earl Panic at Funkatron as well. I don't remember ever playing Mercs, but that's also coming as part of the expansion pack. So that's cool.
Those are good games.
Yeah. And interestingly, to continue with the trend here of games, Yu-Gi-Oh! Collection, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days collection has been revealed thanks to a leak of the box. There's 14 games in this thing. I'm not going to go through all of them.
No, man, you got to go through all of them. The people need to know about the sacred cards.
I do remember playing Eternal Duelist Soul, so that's cool that that's in there. But yeah, it's a mix of a lot of games, starting from like the Game Boy all the way to PS1, PS2.
For
So
all these games, I mean, they're emulating all this stuff.
yeah,
So and with emulators, you're gonna add cheats. So what they should do is just like there should just be a button and like on the console, like if you press L2 or something, and the
yeah.
button is just called "Believe in the Heart of the Cards," and you automatically win.
Yes, exactly. You can also get a exclusive trading card, the Quarter Century Secret Rare, if you get the collector's edition, I think. So
It's not Dark Magician Girl. What a ripoff.
no, yeah, or the Dark Magician.
Yeah,
This of course
right.
comes out February 27, 2025. So not too far from here if you want to get your Yu-Gi-Oh fix. Did you ever play that? I played that like free to play one
No,
that they
I've never
had.
played Yu-Gi-Oh. I've watched the anime, and that's enough for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The anime is pretty great on its own.
Right.
Speaking of great, Control was my game of the year for 2019, and Control 2 apparently is going to be an action RPG, according to Remedy. So they like announced this along with like sales figures for Alan Wake 2 and some other stuff, and it's like, okay, we're just randomly throwing out there that it's going to be an action RPG. Okay,
The weird thing is Control 1 is also kind of an action RPG. Like, so
yeah, true,
if you leveled up, you had gear, you could spec a character in certain different ways. So
right,
it's like, okay, are you gonna have like different? I mean, that game even had like the traditional like green, blue, purple loot system.
right.
So how is this game gonna be much different?
I mean, hey, if you give me more of the same, I'm not going to complain about Control 2. So yeah,
It'll have the vaunted yellow epic loot.
yeah. And then lastly here, I'm sure Mark's going to be happy. 2K has removed their launcher from playing when you play any of their games on Steam or Epic, and also the 2K launcher beta from Sid Meier's Civ 5 as well. Hey, that's cool. So
I actually think the Civ 5 launcher is a little not necessary, but it's helpful because like you didn't have to like boot directly into the game. Like you had a
yeah,
few options like before you needed to. I guess it's so fine, but I don't play much of those games anyway on PC. So
yeah. Some of them you still have to for like Mafia Trilogy and XCOM 2 because you needed to use the mods, but
yeah,
that's good that more companies are realizing we don't need your launcher. Um,
right.
Ubisoft learned that the hard way, but still, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of things here, we're talking about games that are. This week that's coming up is like the last big release week as far as like games go, but it is a pretty big one. So, for y'all that have been waiting on that Indiana Jones, it's finally coming out this week. Of course, you can go play it on Game Pass or you can buy it on your Xbox as well if that's something you want to do, or you can wait for it to come on PlayStation next year too. Um, Marvel Rivals, that's free to play, is also coming out that same day, and
Yep.
they just announced like 5 new characters in that launch trailer. So, hey,
Finally, people can play as Iron Fist.
Wolverine's a pretty big one for them to announce there. I keep seeing the dev for Mythwrecked talking about the game on Blue Sky. So, cool that is finally coming out as well. Props to him and the team that they're finally going to get to see the Labor of Love come out. Fantasia Neo Dimension is also coming to everything on the 5th. I know a lot of RPG fans. Of course, that's the last game we've seen from Hironobu Sakaguchi, and of course, the last full music composition that we're going to get from Nobuo Uematsu. So, there's plenty to go on. With that, the Animal Crossing Pocket Camp like mobile game is also coming or also out already today. Anton Blast it's like the next game from the Pizza Tower devs or similar, very similar to that game. That comes out tomorrow as well. Go check that out. Infinity Nikki comes out. That's going to be the next. Everybody's saying it's going to be the next Genshin Impact. So,
Looks cool. I mean, who knows?
yeah, I'll probably think about giving it a whirl here, as you know. But yeah, Indiana Jones. That's the thing people are looking forward to for sure. We don't get the. I know the one you're looking forward to, the Power Rangers game. That's for next week. But yeah, big release, last release week there for games. Lots of stuff for y'all to go for everybody to go check out. I'll talk about one of those games that I am currently playing next week. Anything you're looking forward to there? You might.
Nah, probably getting banned away down the way too.
Oh, forgot before we get out of here. I meant to make it the last thing we talked about. I forgot to do it before we did this, but just because we're gonna do this for Xbox and Nintendo too. Why not? We've been talking about PlayStation a lot this episode. Yeah. What do you think about their 2024 when you look back on it? Like, this was supposed to be a down year for PlayStation. It felt like it wasn't.
I think it was kind of mostly a decent year, but they didn't have any like super big. I mean, I guess Astrobot, but people like Sony for like their kind of more adult or dark stuff, and they didn't necessarily have that. But solid year overall, I think.
I think this was a much better year than we had anticipated. I think when you're looking at, this is including, the stuff that technically is not theirs, but it's third party exclusive because it's only on their console right now.
Right.
Silent Hill 2 remake was great. Of course, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. We've talked about that. Yes, Astrobot was amazing. That's their exclusive, but Rise of the Ronin was probably like the one sort of okay game. But then like you look back at like Helldivers 2, how much of the zeitgeist that game took up. It still amazes me that is not part of the Game Awards, like Game of the Year nominations. When you think about like how impactful it was for this year, Stellar Blade is another one that was like, had a lot of hype behind it. We didn't know it was going to necessarily deliver, and then it did. So when you look at all that together, I feel like that's a really positive year for PlayStation. I think it goes to, all those deals that PlayStation makes and everything. We're looking at that. And then of course, you look at all the other games. Yeah, they didn't have the Spider-Mans or the Last of Us or any of the ones that like you're kind of used to from them. But I think that shows that you don't need to have that and you can still have a pretty good year, all things considered. So like 2025 is kind of like the big mystery one of, we know like some things that are coming, but it's like we don't know a whole lot. So like if there's a showcase lingering around Sony, I feel like, you had the missteps with Concord and that, but again, Sony knew what they had. They shut down Concord and then launched Astrobot the same day, so that we would just kind of forget about it. But yeah, to me,
their biggest misstep, or that was their biggest misstep, but they've had a lot of smaller good steps. So
yeah, even the Bungie DLC, which they technically own Bungie, that DLC was very well thought of, Final Shape. So and when you're looking at, just to do a big picture on the three major ones, they probably still had the best year technically, I think, out of all of them. Nintendo had they released a lot of stuff, but
it'll really depend next week when Indiana Jones comes out. If it's like some perfect 10 out of 10 game,
I don't think it's going to be a 10 out of 10 game.
Yeah.
I think if it gets 8s and 9s, I think it's still really, really great that you have that game out, and
I mean,
existing.
if it does well, it'd be great. I mean, but I don't know. I don't really like their last two Wolfenstein games that much, and we'll see.
I didn't like was it Youngblood, but I did like
Yeah.
the difficulty spike in that game is weird. But
Yeah, that's why I stopped playing it. As I got to the Empire State Building, like, this game's like too hard, or I can't beat this mission. So,
well, I mean, they did let you like bump it down to whatever you wanted, but it was still kind of annoying to have to do that.
right.
But we'll talk about the Xbox One next week, and probably Nintendo after that, along with whatever else is going on in gaming. So until then, everybody, thank you for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time.
Later.